Damn it, Michael Bay. This is the last straw, I'm serious. After you've made a frankly appalling trilogy to an extremely respected and very good licence, you then come along and just make a whole new level of horrendousness. Seriously, this film could not be worse. But what the very worst element to this film is beyond me. Was it the downright lazy action? Nearly all of it is off screen. And so you see, or no, you don't see, you hear loads of robots fighting and shooting and shouting, yet the camera just doesn't concentrate on it, just concentrates on the actors. And why anyone would rather see the actors' sweaty, panting faces instead of cool robots fighting is an extremely good question, actually. But when you do see the action, it's probably even worse. It's all you see is dust, dirt, sparks, whatever. You cannot see anything. And it mixed with the camera being way too zoomed in on a robot's arm, or sometimes the fights are even out of focus. How you make a CGI battle out of focus is... Why? Why would you do something that difficult? It's... God, this is off to a bad start already, but honestly, it's not going to get any better. Or, maybe the worst element is the shoddy plot. I shan't waste your time going over it, giving you a synopsis, because in the film it's so loosely touched, and it's such a plain, dry, just planky plot. It's really bad. I'm not going to give you a synopsis, because I couldn't if I tried. But I think the reason why it's just so difficult to follow, and why I lost track so quickly of it, is because of the pacing. It's so stretched out. Everything happens so slowly. There's so much convoluted dialogue we don't need, and it drags on forever, and it's painful. Which leads me to the next thing which this causes. The 2 3/4 hour runtime. Could you watch 165 minutes of your childhood exploding before your eyes? Like I did. I doubt you could. The only reason I didn't walk out of the cinema was because I was paying for it, so... Oh, and when I say exploding in front of your eyes, I don't mean that metaphorically. There is every Michael Bay trademark you can imagine here. American flags, I personally counted 21. Shitloads of explosions, worm shots of people getting out of cars, worm shots of the leading lady's ass. You've got panning shots of landscape. You've got just about everything. Except, strangely, there's very, very few lens flares. Shock horror! Is Michael Bay learning? Is Michael Bay getting better? Is he just becoming a less annoying director? Yeah, no. Instead of lens flares, we have something which you may think is impossible, even more annoying than lens flares. And it's just taking it way too far. The sun. That's right, the sun. We keep having shots of the sun getting in the way of the face, getting straight into the camera. I think the lens is probably just burnt out at the end of this, because we're continually seeing slow panning shots of just the sun. You can't see anything, and then for a millisecond the actor's head will get in the way, then he can see stuff, and then we think, oh, thank God, it's not just white and yellow engulfing, but no, the sun's come back because it's panned away from the actors' faces. It's... What are you thinking? It's not sci-fi, it's not cinematography, it's just... shit. It's total shit. And I can't stand it anymore. And sometimes you'd see a shot where the sun is not in the screen and it's sort of landscape and it's midday, but when the sun is in the shot, it's afternoon. That's only a few of the mistakes. Like, at one point there's a car chase Or I think there is, because most of the time there's dust being kicked up from the camera car. Another one, which is my favourite, is that sometimes a transformer will burst into the screen and there'll be one or two extras which just don't react. It's like everyone else is screaming and they're just there, just standing still, doing their everyday thing. Honestly, it's so funny trying to pick them out. Start playing Where's Wally. It's the most fun you can have while watching this film. Seriously, you should try it. And if the extras are bad, you know the main cast is going to be bad. Mark Wahlberg, great actor, not believable in the slightest as an inventor. Now, this is definitely not the acting. This is something which is probably just as important. It's the characters themselves. Mark Wahlberg just... You may think he's really good in this, but honestly, he seems so uncomfortable in this role, because the reason it's not believable is because his character has no depth. There's no trademark thing about him. And I don't think I'll ever say this again, but I do think Sam Witwicky, Shia LaBeouf's character in the previous films, has more depths. And that sort of shows how bad this film is. For the rest of the cast, just a mix of both. Terrible acting, terrible characters. Don't even want to dwell on that. And if that wasn't bad enough, we have appalling, just godforsaken dialogue. Now, dialogue is pretty difficult to notice in films, whether it's really good or really bad. But in this film, it's so bad, it's actually a prominent issue. We're getting lines like, "My face is my warrant. You can't hurt me, I'm an American." And then you have an Englishman say, "I think it looks badass." Try and say badass in an English accent. Yep, you sound like a twat. But that's not the worst line, unbelievably. Oh god, this film's got a lot of worse things about it. But the very worst line is repeated many times by the same character. Now, Optimus Prime, no less, says, "I'm going to kill you." Optimus Prime? Our childhood idol? Our role model for humanity? Saying that? Come on. Now, this sort of outlines really big points in this film, which is possibly the worst element. Maybe I've made up my mind. Which is, this film is very popular among children. No secret, it's no lie. Because TV shows are very popular among children, so is the film. I mean, there were young children all around the cinema when I was watching this. And like, some maybe even like 4 or 5. But this isn't a child-friendly film. They say shit about 10 or 15 times, and holy guacamole, they even drop an F-bomb. Yet, what's even worse is the violence. You see Mark Wahlberg and Optimus Prime kill humans. Big no. And also, well, what made the first film's violence effective was that it was between robots, and because they were robots, I mean, no one really cared, which is perfectly outlined in the Captain Underpants Extra Crunchy Book of Fun. Now, in the special notes for Flipperamists section, bullet point 3, it clearly states, "Grown-ups will freak out if your Flipperamas feature people beating each other up. To get around this, draw robots and monsters instead. For some reasons, grown-ups think that's okay. Go figure." See? And that is perfect, see? Grown-ups, for some reason, hate humans fighting humans. Yet in this film, the robots are as realistic as possible. They have robot blood, the dogs look so real, honestly, they've got hair and everything. All the robots have like, they've got beards and hair, they've got coats, they've got cigars, not child appropriate either. And they've got guns which they reload and they run out and stuff, which makes no sense. But it's not child friendly, so now we're basically having humans tear each other apart, except they just look funny. It's not good. And also, there's a really uncomfortable scene where there's a really brutal and gritty fight between two humans, which leads to one of them dying. And it's, well, uncomfortable to watch around all these young children. There's also quite a lot of guns, not only among the Transformers, which as I said makes no sense, but of humans as well. Like, just about every single human bad guy in this has a gun, and they unholster it, they point it and they fire it in those cinematic angles. and try to make it look really cool and make the most out of it. And it's a terrible influence on children. Seriously. There was a child who was sitting relatively close to me, who imitating everything whenever something big happens, like, as children do. And that made me laugh, because I used to do that a lot when I was younger. Good memories, and that's what he reminded me of, and I thought, well, I just liked that kid. But there's a moment where a human is firing his gun loads of times, and then the kid, he imitates a gun in a really unnaturally realistic manner, no finger and thumb, really, God, it was really creepy how realistically he held it. Pretended to fire it and said, "I'm gonna kill you," directly quoting Optimus Prime. It was at that moment, no. 1 out of 10. That's what Transformers Age of Extinction deserves. God, I don't know who to shoot here really. I don't know if it was the writer, the director, the cinematographer. But then I found out that Michael Bay does all of his own shots. So Michael Bay is not only the director, but the cinematographer. He needs to quit. Honestly, that's the note I'm going to leave you on. Stop